March 18th meeting of the Monmouth City Council, and Phyllis, so roll call please.
Counselor Carey?
Here.
Counselor Coons?
Here.
Counselor Meyer is excused. Counselor Milligan?
Here.
Counselor Schaefer is not here.
I spoke with Jesse and he should be here
Okay.
tonight.
Counselor Silbernagel?
Here.
Mayor Oberst?
Yep. All rise for the flag salute, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. The consent calendar tonight consists of the minutes from the council meeting and work session from March 4th. If I can have a motion to approve. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And with that, we'll adopt those two sets of minutes. Reports tonight, I'd like to start out by asking council's approval of Stephen Deptula appointed to the budget committee. He has come to a few council meetings lately, and he's a neighbor and a longtime friend, and I'm twisted into joining on that budget committee. If you all are so inclined, I would appreciate that.
I move that we accept Stephen Deptula's appointment to the budget committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I think Steve won that one. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, thank you. Short little mayor's report tonight. Scott and I attended a League of Oregon Cities class on economic development and community visioning, and one of the teachers was, instructors actually was our former our neighbor from Dallas, former manager Roger Jordan, and who was the other one? I can't.
Yeah, Bob Wells.
Right.
Salem City.
Right, and those two guys teach an amazing variety of courses for us. It's rather astounding all the things they do. But it was a good class, learned a few things. I shared the packet of information from that with Councilor Carey the other day, so there's a copy floating around. I'm sure he'd be glad to share when he's done digesting the information. I did sit down and it didn't take this long to convince Stephen Deptula to join budget, but we did have a nice 2-hour coffee and just kind of talked about the progress that the city has made and the things that we're doing and so on. So a good conversation there. And then I had the pleasure of attending the annual community awards banquet, the chamber banquet on Friday night, and it was a nice gathering. It was done in a very different way this year with chamber members voting and on the businesses and nominations from the public for the various, first citizen and educator of the year and so on. And instead of the usual way we've done it in the past with the award winners notified ahead of time, we had 3 finalists in each category, and the actual announcement of the winner there at the dinner, which was an interesting approach, and just a very nice time. And we, instead of meeting as we have in the past locally, well, semi-locally, we were at the Yellow Hills Winery up at Rickery. So it was a very nice gathering. And that's all I have tonight. And with that, I will turn to council reps to boards and commissions and see what Councilor Kuntz has going at the library.
Well, it's not me at all, but our fabulous staff and volunteers that have been keeping things going at the library. The most exciting event was the wine and poetry tasting, which was held on the Saturday the 8th. The Saturday the 8th. And for really kind of a first major attempt at an out-of-the-box adult programming event, they had over 90 people make reservations, and 75 of those people showed up. So they had a lovely evening of wine tasting, and local poets Donna Henderson and Henry Hughes sharing poetry that they had written, that others had written, all in celebration of a statewide recognition of our late poet laureate William Stafford's 100th birthday. So really great event, successful beyond their wildest dreams, and they are encouraged to continue more adult programming. So that's the big news coming out of the library.
Very good. Councilor Carey, trees.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the Tree Advisory Board met on March 13th And that was in conflict with me because the Central Girls Basketball had their awards, season-ending awards deal at the on the same day and nearly the same time, 6:30. However, so I did not attend. However, on the agenda was the discussion of the Arbor Day celebration, and it's according to Mark and Brian, that April 26th is the spring tree planting. There'll be a morning affair. There'll be more information forthcoming on that, soliciting volunteers both from the community and the council, and of which we've had mixed success on that. Darren, thank you. And Mr. Mayor once, as I recall. But anyway, well, there'll be more on that later as we get closer.
Counselor Carey,
And,
before you became a counselor, you had no idea how many holes I dug.
Well, and as mayor, you continue to dig them. But anyway, that, Mr. Mayor,
I will remember that, Counselor Carey. I need duties for council.
You're on weekend, though.
tip your waitress, it feels great.
Anything else, Counselor Carey, if I
That concludes
dare
my
ask?
report. That's really
Okay, Counselor Milligan.
And I don't plan on topping that one. The Parks and Rec Board met on March the 12th, and one of the first items they took care of was they'd received 4 grants for the Parks and Rec grant program, and they all asked for similar amounts, and since the amount they could hand out was $2,000, they split it 4 ways.
Oh, very good.
So each group got 500, and one is the 4th of July mini marathon, the Monmouth Junior Master Gardeners Day Camp, the library reading final event, and the Western Oregon University Sprint and Triathlon were the groups that received money for programming. And tonight, you're going to get a real nice presentation of the Main Street Amphitheater design. And as far as the dog park goes, it looks like there was a, Minets made a $2,000 donation towards amenities at the dog park.
Wow.
And I'm not sure what they're going to go for. There was a mention of possibly benches for people to sit on. And they're working with the Friends of the Dog Park towards other features that will go in there. And another item that was brought up, and I didn't take thorough enough notes, but on April 19th, the week before the Arbor Day, there's going to be an Earth Day event. And I'm not sure.
General Woods Park, planting in General Woods Park.
Okay,
Yeah, 10 o'clock.
so set your weekend schedules for April for activities in the parks. And that's it for me.
All right. Any community announcements? And hearing none. Mr. Manager?
Yep, just a couple things. Development activity, we had a pre-application conference for a subdivision, another phase in the Edwards Edition, so that'll open up some new housing lots. And then also on the corner of Jackson Stadium, we had a house sitting there on a pretty large lot. That's actually going to transition, that'll be a multifamily project, so they're pretty close to coming in from pre-app. They've got a couple other steps we have to do in there. There's a form of development agreement we need to deal with, and they actually need a little bit extra road in there, so we need to do a right-of-way. We'll call it a dededication. We'll actually kind of cede some of their property. So there's a couple steps in there, but that'll get going, and obviously a great location for a project like that.
How many units are we looking at?
21 about. They got to finalize everything, so, yeah, so we'll get that going. And then in Concord, Interesting Mortality is all rolled together, then with Western, with the education building, going on board. We're actually going to load some things in our budget this year, like, building permits and system development charges, and we're still getting homes on a kind of scattered basis, they're coming in slowly, but, we're definitely not totally quiet.
Very good.
That's all right. Then the recreation building that we sold is being worked on really hard and fast. They've been in there really well, and they're already working on a lot of things. They're going to go the lower levels at first, open up a couple items, then they'll move on to upstairs and probably do a housing type project up there. So that's moving along pretty nicely. And then another one, still got a couple steps to go, made some nice progress on the Talmadge Road sidewalk project. Right of way is always challenging, but they actually got past that hurdle, so now we've got on the table with the county on how we can split the costs and manage the project, so hopefully if we can get that going. I think the intent is to go this summer on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
All righty, any citizens' comments tonight? And seeing that. Turning to the business agenda tonight, our first item, we had a discussion at the work session last time around about the legislature's actions around marijuana dispensaries. And there was, my sense of things, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but the council just felt like it was important that we have a little breathing room to have a look at this stuff and figure out exactly where we're headed. And the legislature made room for a moratorium on dispensaries, not permanent, but gave a time frame where we could basically have the time so that staff could step back and look at this and any regulations that might want to be put in place around that. Lane, am I right in understanding that the legislature's position is that cities can regulate time, place, and manner, and that's it?
They have ceded some regulatory authority generally around that time, place, and manner, but of course there's also the layer of state regulations that apply. But that's going to be part of the kind of the evaluation of this,
Right.
to see what latitude cities really do have on the ground.
Right.
And you do, this moratorium authorization that was enacted by the legislature was done after your last meeting. We were anticipating it, you, I think, indicated at your workshop, we would try a 6-month moratorium. The legislature actually authorized a 1-year moratorium from May 1 of this year until May 1 of next year. So this ordinance has been drafted with that, but with the proviso that if you have concluded after evaluation that you want to lift the moratorium sooner than that, you can do that. So it's effectively a moratorium for as long as you want, up to the full extent of the legislative authorization.
Okay. And our usual arrangement is to have a first reading on an ordinance, followed by at the next meeting, a second reading on an ordinance, and this one's a little different. Could you?
Yeah, this has been done, under your charter, you have the authority to adopt an ordinance in one meeting if it is passed first reading and then second reading and then voted on unanimously by the council. You can adopt it in one meeting. That's how this has been drafted with an emergency clause. You could always elect to just go with first reading tonight and second reading at your next meeting, but again, taking off of the conversation in the workshop, I think the sense was to be clear about the city's intentions here sooner than later, so that you don't have somebody spending money getting geared up only to find out in 2 weeks or 3 weeks' time that they can't do it. And so the idea here was to prepare this for first and second reading tonight with an emergency clause, so that if it is voted on unanimously, it will go into effect immediately.
So can I read once and call it a first and
Yes?
second reading?
Oh, I would do it twice, actually. I
Okay.
actually do 2 readings,
Is there
yes.
any discussion to be had?
Well, I can go there too, and is there any discussion to be had around this before I get
Actually,
into
a
reading?
clarifying point, maybe some context too, is that the interesting challenge here is that the state, even the legislature was not, they're not lined up on this either. And the challenging one for this is that we could go through the process, let's say that we, in a more timely manner, want to go through, set some regulations and do that. But let's say your real desire was to just do a ban. That would be tricky because potentially, the next time legislature meets, they could allow the cities to do it. So then you could go through a process, say, okay, we're okay with just the time and place, we'll go ahead and allow. And then they give us the ability, then now you got a business sitting there. So there's one argument you could throw out is that we really should hold off and let the legislature take another crack at this, and that would mean we'd be out, roughly a year from now.
That could be part of your
But
evaluation.
that's something that we need to have a discussion. I think at this point, you can just get this enacted so we have that time, but we need some follow-up to see how quickly you want to move on.
There might be some interesting election results in November
Yeah.
around.
And this extension of the legislative moratorium and this moratorium, the ordinance until May of next year, does give time for the legislature to take action on this if they decide to do that.
And the reminder that the federal government could always decide to change its
Sure. Oh, yeah,
policies
a
and
lot of this is up in the air.
go after all of us who, any state and every city and everybody.
Okay, so, anybody else?
Yeah, I just got some questions, because some things have changed, I believe, since what we discussed in the last work session. I was under the assumption it was gonna be 180 day. Did you, did I not hear when you first
Yeah,
stated?
this ties in with the full extent of the legislative moratorium, basically because we didn't have that time frame when you met in your workshop. And your sense was that you were gonna do an evaluation, make a decision whether to allow or not allow. If you do that within 6 months and decide you want to allow, you can repeal this moratorium anytime you want. So it's really as long as you want it to be, up to the extent of the legislative authority.
Okay, and then, let's say we do decide, and it says here that we need to do a completion of an evaluation of the potential impacts of the operation of registered medical marijuana dispensaries within the city of Monmouth. Does that mean we have to do a full-on survey?
No. It means you have to satisfy yourselves of
Okay.
the implications, that's all.
Okay,
Your evaluation, it can be whatever you want it to be.
perfect.
I'm good.
I was much more inclined and continue to be more inclined towards the 180-day moratorium. I suppose I understand the rationale for matching up with the way the legislature dealt with this. You know, because frankly, I would like to get this resolved. You know, I understand that there's some issues, to your point, Scott, that we need to be aware of, but we need to go up or down on this, I think, fairly soon. I mean, that's my own desire, John Kerry, my own desire.
And the other industry, mechanically get there, you can leave this as is, and then say you want this taken care of in the next 3 months.
months,
Yeah.
We'll
right.
take care of it.
This doesn't
Right.
include a
Well,
6 month.
right.
Yeah.
We can give instructions to staff that,
Speed
to
it up.
get it done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and that's, that what we're talking about, we can lift this at any point that we wish and all that. Well, that is contingent upon, you know, the assistance from staff and other sources. I mean, it's not like, you know, this is gonna have to be, you know, Jesse, to your point of evaluation. So,
That's what I'm concerned about as well.
you know, I would hate for this to
Go to this.
drag until May 1 of 15, waiting for the legislature, hoping against hope that they'll resolve it. So I came in as a no. However, given the discussion, I'm good. I'm a yes.
Okay.
But I do want to. I would like there to remain a degree of time tension here, so we can move this. And then if we decide that it's a ban, or if we decide it's a go, then we need to look and see what the landscape looks like at that time, and then just hold it. And the go live date may be, you know, May 16 of 2015. We may have resolved it, but we'll go live on that. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot out there. So anyway, all that, I'm good.
And with that, seeing no other, I will read by title for the first time an ordinance declaring a moratorium on the operation of medical marijuana dispensaries in the city of Monmouth and declaring an emergency. And if I have no objections from council, I'll proceed with a second reading of that title. And seeing no objection, an ordinance declaring a moratorium on the operation of medical marijuana dispensaries in the city of Monmouth and declaring an emergency. This is special ordinance number 1342. If I could have a motion on that.
I move approval of ordinance 1342, declaring a moratorium on medical marijuana dispensaries and declaring an emergency.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. And a roll call, please, Phyllis.
Counselor Milligan,
Aye.
Counselor Schaefer,
Aye.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Coons,
Aye.
Counselor Silvernagle.
Aye.
And with that, we have adopted that ordinance, and because it comes with an emergency clause, it is in effect when I sign it.
A couple of things, just one's a comment. You're among friends right now. You and probably almost every city council in the state has considered this issue. Some have, you know, limited ones have said, let's just let them go. There's been a ton of people doing temporary bans, a lot of them saying we are banning them, it's not gonna happen, we don't care what comes out from the legislature or whatnot, it's not gonna happen in our city, so there's that. Direction-wise, when would you like this back? Do you want it back within a few months, or?
I'd like an analysis, I think, and that, I see we've been invited to a workshop that AOC is putting on May 1st, and I think that would be valuable to attend. It says the U.S. attorneys will be there as well as local government, so
Want your invite back? Oh.
I'm not going. But
Oh.
anyway, I would like to have some representation there, just to have a really good conversation with folks around that issue.
It is good, and then obviously you have Chief Police Association is tracking this real heavily too, so Daryl's on top of that.
Yeah.
So if you like this target, within a few months, we can do that.
And I'll just speak briefly from the perspective of the League of Oregon Cities Board. We have been wrestling with this issue and with the broader issue of the general legalization that the legislature at least took a serious glance at this last session. And that's what when I reported in November, I fully expect to see a measure on the ballot. And given that the last poorly drawn measure drew 45% support, I think a more careful measure is in all likelihood, especially given our neighbors to the north in the state of Colorado, is in all likelihood something else we'll get to wrestle with in the next few months. So, there you go.
I would like it sooner rather than later. I would like the 6-month window to be the end date. We all kind of had agreed that the 6 month would be a good time within that 6 months. So, and the reason for that is because what we're talking about here in November necessarily isn't going to be that's going to be voting on what Colorado and Washington have done, and that's legalizing recreational use. We're not talking about recreational use here. We're talking about medical marijuana dispensaries to legal citizens, our citizens that have the right legally to attain this. So it has been deemed a medicinal use, so I think we need to make this sure that we are careful about people providing a place for our citizens if legislation works out like for whatever reason, but we need to make sure that we do this within 6 months, because right now they do have the right to go do that, so I think we need to keep that in mind. This isn't about recreation use, this is about medical marijuana being dispensed locally for our citizens. I would hate to have our citizens trying to get a legal product and having no way to get there because it's somewhere else when someone wants to provide that. So just 6 months, I think it should be brought to us, back to us. And we're talking about that brought to us, that's the analysis, the evaluation from the staff? Okay, that's perfect.
And
We
then, like
can,
John says, that we
yeah.
can
and we can have some additional discussion around this when we have our call setting as well, so.
Right, and that there are, along the way, so we don't have a big information dump all at once. If we could get, some of the general, as information comes available, the parameters that the state laid out relative to dispensaries. So we could be sort of apprised of what's happening as it's happening.
And I think we need to make sure we keep it focused on medical marijuana dispensary, and not recreational use, because that's really not what
We
we're
won't,
discussing.
there's no discussion.
Yeah,
there's
not.
There is potential for
That's why I'm reiterating it.
Right.
So in other words, just keep us apprised which way the smoke is blowing.
As it.
Ouch.
Don't dig yourself a hole.
We'll top it off.
Find
right
out.
now.
Okay, so with that, when I get that signed this evening, that will come into effect. Our only other business agenda item, and I've been looking forward to this with bated breath for, 2 or 3 years now, Mark? I can finally start to exhale or something. Sorry.
I'm gonna sit here.
We're on a roll here. Main Street Park Amphitheater. We had a total of 4 designs, and that wasn't good enough for the citizens of our fair city. So we merged and morphed and came up with a 5th one that sort of unifies pieces of the first 4 into a single concept. And I've seen the small drawings in our packet, but I want to see big stuff.
Well, this is David Horsley and Joanne Dow from Dow Architecture, our design team. While they're setting up here, I thought I'd give you some of the background on the process we've been going through over the past year now. When we started this process, we wanted to design a project that had three elements to it. That it created an amphitheater structure with a seating design and a specific orientation that we wanted. We wanted to be able to have a relocated and expanded restroom for Main Street Park, and also provide an irrigation system for the park that reuses the water from the fountain. Currently, the water from the fountain is kind of one and done. It goes through the system and then out to wastewater. So this would be a storage unit and an irrigation system for the entire park. Currently, you know, when you're in the park in August, the west side of the park is nice and green and the east side is brown. There's
Not
no
so much.
irrigation. And if you look in some of the later drawings, the later concepts B, D, and E, and you look under there's an outline that looks like a submarine between the bathroom and Jackson Street. That's the underground storage tank that would be for the irrigation system. Another consideration that we wanted to take into account with the structure was to create enough storage for the items that we need to put on events, such as tables, chairs, and beer garden fencing in our sound system. Currently, we're trucking those from several different locations downtown to the park. So we wanted to have a spot to store the, year-round storage of tables, chairs, and beer garden fencing, and then the seasonal storage of the sound system during the concert season, and we put it away after that. We worked with a project oversight team that had some local business people on it. It had representatives from the arts department at WU, including Tad Shannon, who is a sound and light expert. He teaches that at the university. Bill Foster, who does our sound for our concerts, was also there. We also brought in for a special meeting Apex Sound, a sound company from Salem, just to get their thoughts on sound and light issues as well. So when we started a year ago, we had an open house in April, and at that time we were really looking at kind of broad general concepts and input from the public on the orientation of the stage, the location of the restroom. Those are really the things that we were looking at, more of the layout than, say, specific building design. And what we found was some of the concepts that went away fairly quickly. Concept A was one, concept C was another. A had the restroom connected right directly to the stage, so that by sitting, you could sit in the middle of the seating area, and within your line of vision is not only the stage, but all the activity that's going on at the restroom at the same time. So what we kind of came to fairly quickly was that the restroom design worked best kind of orientated from Jackson to Main Streets the long way on the existing concrete pad area there near Jackson Street. It also gave us a good proximity to both the playground area and the splash fountain, where you're going to have a lot of kids. You got water, you got what bathing suits to change, you may have some emergency bathroom needs. So it was good to get it kind of separate from the stage facility, make it more park central, if you will, park centric. Then what we did was, and then you see concept C. C was when you're a planner, you always have one concept that's kind of out of the box. So C put the stage in the middle of the lawn with the orientation to project back towards what's now the police station, although it could be oriented the other way. But it kind of used a lot of the lawn space to get there. Didn't maximize the amount of lawn space we could have potentially to accommodate bigger events. So those concepts didn't go as far. As we moved to the second open house, then we did some tweaks and developed to concept B and D. And so D moved, so there was an orientation along Jackson Street, and B continued on with that kind of the diamond shape, or it looks like a baseball diamond in the corner there of Knox and Jackson Streets. And then provided in your packet is the summary of the public comments we received during the public input process. We had the 2 open houses, and then we had an online survey during August. We had the ability to vote during the 4th of July festival, and then we decided to go ahead and we weren't in a big hurry to construct necessarily, and we thought a good way to get more input would be to keep things open during the Music in the Park series. So we got a number of comments over the course of the series. We brought the boards out to every meeting. when you look at page 2 of the staff report, there's a typo there I want to correct. The first full, well, I guess the second full paragraph on page 2, it says, summary of the public comments on these two concepts is included in the attachments. In general, the public preferred the structural design of concept, that should be D, but preferred the location of concept B at the corner of the park adjacent to Knox and Jackson Streets. As the concept, and it should say D, design was long and rectangular, it was not well suited to the corner location. So people like the longer structure in general more, but they were trying to wedge it into a kind of a round peg in a square hole there in the corner. So that led to the development of the hybrid concept E, and that's where I'll turn it over to David and Joanne to talk about what's in the concept that you're looking at this evening.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thank you, council and Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to come out and present our current configuration for the project. I wish everyone could see the boards right now, but we'll just forge it.
We're trying to maximize for the camera
Yeah,
coverage.
that's right. So
Yeah, hang on just a minute, let me get moved over.
present to you, and thank you to the advisory committee. We've had a wonderful group led by Mark and Russ and Bill, and really appreciated all the input that we've gotten, and it's been fantastic. As you mentioned, Mark gave a great overview of the process that we use, and we typically use a similar process, not necessarily 4 schemes, but we'll bring out 3 ideas, and some of them will cast a fairly wide net about ideas, because we want to know really what's important to you and give you the opportunity to weigh in on that. And this one was particularly successful because we created 2 of the designs that had a lot of intriguing attributes that resonated with a lot of folks. Concept B was extremely open. I mean, it kind of took the lead from the existing gazebo that it sits on the park right now. And then concept D, for instance, is a much more closed configuration, and that comes from several pieces. Mark, along with myself and many others, is not getting any younger, and and one of the functional pieces of this amphitheater is to have some storage capabilities, to have a way to hold a number of the pieces that you use for your concerts, and so we needed to do that. So this amphitheater has to achieve a number of goals, and it's somewhat unique to amphitheaters. One, it needs to hold the existing functions that you hold there now, which is primarily music events, typically amplified bands, for instance. It also needs to be flexible enough to hold all kinds of events, whether it's drama or children's theater, or can tap into additional partnerships with WU, for instance, possibly movies within the park, summertime, other things like that, and more passive events such as Tai Chi or any kind of activities. It's a public facility. So that's one. It's also, as a public facility, it needs to be extremely durable and maintenance-free. I mean, Russ is on the committee, we know that. we do public work, and it needs to be solid, and it needs to take care of itself. And so that's part of what this project needs to do. Also, kind of unique amongst amphitheaters, most amphitheaters that you think of are kind of backed up onto something, whether it's a landscape or a river or a wall or any number of kinds of things like that. This one, it's backed up into the corner of the park, but the city continues beyond that. The still current but soon to be old police station is right across on the corner, for instance. So this amphitheater has essentially 2 fronts, or there is no back, we can put it that way. So there's a relative amount of transparency that we want to provide, and that's where concept B came from, but modeled with the storage of concept D, we needed to create something that's kind of unique. And we're really excited about where we've ended up. It's by pulling the amphitheater into the corner, it creates some geometries that we wanted to take advantage of. And we wanted to be able to provide a lot of storage while still at the same time not having it be really blocky and heavy, which is where concept B was, frankly. So this still will be able to hold the fence pieces and the sponsorship raw, scaffolding pieces like that. So there's a fair amount of storage in here. We can also hold some items for year round, other ones that can be seasonal. And so the corner volumes that hold up the roof also store items. Structurally, it's also very interesting. These wall elements hold up the roof beams, which then hold up the ceiling structure, and it's all incredibly efficient, yet at the same time isn't very heavy. Along with achieving all of those functional attributes, we also need this building needs to fit in Monmouth. And there's a fair amount of brick in Monmouth. There's a feeling of solidity, but also warmth. Brick has kind of unique attributes like that, thousands of years old. There are certain principles of brick that are very important to understand when we're building architecture out of it. And we're almost kind of getting back to the roots of brick with this project. It's very intriguing that way. A lot of brick right now that you see on buildings doesn't actually really hold the building up. It does in very old buildings, but in most new buildings it's more of a cladding. It's not actually structural. This it will be. It'll actually be structural wall elements that then hold up the beams that then hold up the roof. So it's kind of interesting. It's going backwards and yet going forwards at the same time. So we're very excited about that. Also three-dimensionally, the walls taper down as they get up, as they reach out from the form, so that they're high where they need to hold up the beams, but then they taper down so that they're relatively low as they come around to the edges of the amphitheater. So it doesn't feel nearly as big as it kind of is, and we don't need a whole ton of ceiling height in these storage zones, so we brought that down to around 8-9 feet or so. Also, we have a very interesting possibilities for lighting of this. We can pull bricks out and things like that above those portions, so we can achieve a very subtle but secure lighting kind of strategies. But then, Joanne, if you want to talk more about some of the more, I'll bring over some samples. We don't want to throw too many samples out because then you don't listen to us anymore. You just kind of touch and feel the stuff that we're handing around. So we'll pull out a couple of things, and you can start to get a feel for what we're talking about.
Yes, I'm Joanne, and we're thrilled to be here to present this to you. We're really thrilled about this amphitheater for the park. David will pass this around, and feel free to touch it and examine it, because this is the exciting part of the project. We are passing around basically a spectrum of materials that we're considering for the amphitheater. And
So that would be rude.
Yes.
David is passing around, that is a zinc roof. And essentially, we are looking at a very minimal palette for the amphitheater. And we look at, we like to look at the honesty of the materials. So basically, we keep it simple. Zinc roof that will last 100 years, structural brick that will last the same amount, and precast concrete, and some exterior grade wood, some potentially sustainable bamboo. So we want to keep it simple because we think that's the essence of not only the existing structures in your park, but also in all the buildings that we see in town. So I'm just going to go through some of the components. So as you review those, I think you're moving them around pretty fast.
We're getting it.
But essentially the structure, what we want to do is create a sculptural piece. It's more of an omnidirectional amphitheater. So just as David mentioned, there isn't a front or a back. It's a sculpture piece that anchors the park, but yet speaks to the gazebo and speaks to the playground. And it also has a mini-me, so to speak, restroom with similar materials. And when one uses masonry, which is a historic material, seemingly heavy, and we came up with the idea of a way to lighten it up is to, we call it dematerialize. And I think David mentioned that you can pull bricks away to create holes. And that's, you can see in some of the renderings when you see missing bricks. Those are essentially holes coming through so you can see light beyond. And we taper the side walls, again, to bring down the side walls of the storage areas and to just lift up the roof and make it light and airy. Because during the day when it isn't in use, it would be nice to be able to see through to the stage area and have these, we call them ventilated views through the stage. And so you're not looking behind a bandshell wall. You can also see from the renderings some of our ideas to create interest with the brick wall is, in addition to the holes, we could have different colored bricks to start to identify zones of base, middle, and top. We can project the brick out ever so slightly to start giving a textural surface. But doing all this with simply the material versus a lot of trim or added decor. The underside of the roof is a thick tongue and groove fir deck. And we don't have a sample, but it would just be exposed on the underside. So you have the color of the reddish brick, the warm wood, and the gray metal zinc, which is a wonderful palette, we think, that's durable and timeless and appropriate for the amphitheater. One of the unique features that Mark mentioned is along the stage. We need this to be operable, functional during concerts. So the back of the stage, there should be a backstage walls that open out during performance. But during the day, we like to be able to fold those panels into each other to, if you can see on that first board there, the first image shows a gridded wood panel material that essentially opens when you have a concert or a play. And the next image is in its closed position, so during the day or non-events, evenings. And I don't know, David passed this material around. It's like a flower. That's a cementitious material, and basically it's cementitious base. And it could be configured in any pattern, whether it's a flower or we're showing something that's a little more abstract and gridded, but it's very durable. So, so that will protect the wood surface. And let me see if there are any other unique features that we're looking at. This is a little bit hard to see on your second board, this top image at the bottom on the back. It's an opportunity to create identity for the amphitheater. So we're considering possibly laser cut metal, painted metal, that could say Monmouth Amphitheater. It could be anything that would help anchor the backside. So it's another way to incorporate an art, but all with a light touch to keep it durable and simple. The bottom of the second board, a couple example strategies of lighting. Again, we're very concerned about maintenance, durability, and rather than actual light fixtures mounted on the amphitheater, we would like to find hidden coves for lighting. So you actually don't see the fixture, but you do see the light to help with vandalism. And then again, the side walls, which form the storage rooms, are tapered down, and we could install light fixtures on the top of the roof so they could shine up on top of that roof to shine up on the main amphitheater roof. And so that wouldn't get in the way of the performers, but it would help light the side wings of the amphitheater. So we're starting to think of innovative ways to light and make this amphitheater not only be functional, but a beautiful amenity for the community. Not sure I'm missing anything else.
No, I think that's good. I guess I should walk this way.
Yes, please.
The, again, we want to make this quietly beautiful when it's occupied, when it's being used, but also quietly beautiful when it's not being occupied. And when it is occupied, it's very interesting that the history of amphitheaters was born around acoustic music. Essentially, music has always been acoustic up until 50 or so years ago, and to make that properly resonate in churches and other environments like that, the backdrop needed to be relatively hard and have capability to throw the sound out from the stage. Since amplification, all those rules are off. You can pretty much project the sound as much as you want, but at the same time, acoustics still play a role in the back of the amphitheater. If you have a drummer, a lot of times the frequency of the drumming going on will make it very hard for them to hear the rest of the performers. And so that's where this treatment that we're talking about comes from. We can have a perforated wood or a wood grill, like Joanne mentioned. That's where that black macaroni that you see that's going around. It's a exterior grade of a very acoustic material that will help dampen it so that the drummer can tell what's going on as well. And then when we open the wings of the back wall out, it not only helps with the acoustics, but it also offers an opportunity to create like a mini backstage for drama events. So it's everything we do is about efficiency and trying to have things do dual duty. So that if we can solve two problems with one act or component, then that's what we're always shooting for.
So what you have before you this evening is a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Board. The board has been very much involved in this project. They attended the open house meetings that we held last spring. They also met jointly with the project oversight team in December. It was at that point when they looked at the concept e-design and said, yes, they would like to see what it looks like with some building material enhancements put on it. And that's what's led to the boards that you have this evening. The cost range for the project is to be $500,000 to $750,000. We're still working on and will continue to work on refining cost estimates. What the recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Board is, they're asking that the council direct staff to proceed with development of the concept E that you have before you this evening.
I want to just real quickly mention, Mark, and this comes from a question that was thrown at me during our police station bond effort from a little forum we held of someone who was convinced that we were about to throw general fund money to build this thing next week. And I had to explain that in fact we would be seeking grants in order to proceed with this project in all likelihood. So, and is that still a fair statement?
Yeah, I think, well, and part of what we would be seeking tonight was if you give us direction that we work on refining the cost estimates and get back to you with a funding plan like we've done for our other projects like the fountain and the Main Street and Streetscape project.
Sure.
I think some of the available sources of funds are the Urban Renewal District, Park System Development Charges. We still have quite a bit in there, and we'll do so even after Madrona Park is built. And then I would say grants would probably be the Ford Family Foundation would be the one I would focus on because of their emphasis on convening spaces.
Right.
I think I mentioned to the board before, I'm not with the recreation element needed from Parks and Rec, the activity element needed to get grants from them. I'm not sure that I can push people sitting on a lawn watching music as a grantable, fundable project.
So just always get danceable music, Mark.
Yeah, right. If we could, push that. So anyway, I think there's options there, and none of those options that I'm, even get to near the general fund. So yeah,
Right.
I think.
Okay, I just wanted to make.
Yeah,
clarify.
glad you asked. Yeah.
Council, anybody have any questions about any aspects of this? And this is still preliminary, that I presume there's lots of narrowing down and details to be nailed down and so on.
Yeah.
You know,
And some of those go, I'm learning about this. In my world of planning, we just cut down trees and write reports. We don't usually build things. But, you know, some of these change right up until the bidding process. I
Sure.
mean, they could go out a couple of years. But what we're looking at is a range of possibilities for some of the materials. You saw the black macaroni, you saw the flower shape, which would be something of that material is what's proposed for when the doors are closed. That is, you know, 300 and something days of the year when the facility is not being used. That's what that would be. So, yeah.
Just a couple of clarifications for me, and then I'll turn it loose on council. The two openings that face out towards the streets, those I presume are closable, so you can completely close off the stage space from.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
And when I look at the two drawings over here, I see multiple tiers going up on the seating. Over here, I just see one. I saw mentioned in the staff report of disagreement about that. Just curious about how that works out long-term and so on.
I think what you see in your drawing there, a little bit of a cross connection there. You're seeing some contour lines that are in the design
Okay.
drawing. What's being proposed is a single band of seating.
Okay.
There isn't a big topographic change as you go through the park. It also, the more bands of seating you put in there, you break up the ability to use that side of the park for other things like, say, play and catch with a frisbee.
Right.
Now you put one single band, you left a big lawn area on either side for kids to play.
My only concern around that is I watch as folks come in and put their chairs down right up close to the stage, and then there's people with blankets who struggle to find a place to sit because people in chairs are in front instead of in back and so on. And I saw the tiers as a way to address that, but what you say makes absolute sense as well. So I think we can probably simply with a sign that says chairs in back, blankets in front, probably address that. John, do you have anything?
Just a couple minor things, because I can't quite get it from the renderings here. It appears in the, and maybe it's more explicit there, but the restroom area, is that like a sort of a brick plaza, or is that steps going up? It's hard to tell. In between the two, the northern area and then the southern section of that. Is that a flat deal?
It's all flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And what you see is that the entrance of the restrooms faces the fountain area, so it works out very well for kids and parent supervision. And yet it's open, it's basically an open passageway between the two that's covered but still open. But it is all, it's relatively flat.
Sure. Elevation of the stage deck, how far up, what's that? There's no, I see no.
Usually we put those around 2'4" or so above above the ground, just at the front of the stage. Up higher than 2'6", you need to have a rail, but obviously doesn't make any sense. And because we're trying to fine tune the grading and topography so that it also needs to obviously be ADA accessible. And so we can actually do that from the corner. We can have the corner come in and dig out a little bit at the front, so we kind of make it a very subtle transition.
What are your thoughts on, or plans for, and it may be a little early yet, the inclusion of technology into this? You know, wireless,
Yeah.
internet, whatever else would be, I don't even know, I don't know enough to specify.
Well, we've had good discussions with AV, and we have Bill on the team. The wonderful and challenging thing about technology is it changes all the time. And so what we have done is we've put capability, basically meaning a conduit, which is just one big pipe that goes from the stage out to a location adjacent to the restroom facility, which would be a great location to put the mixing board, for instance. It needs to be kind of out in the audience, and we can put it in a location there. So if it's wired, which is still the technology for speed right now, but if it's wireless, then even more possibilities. And there are, because of the form, there's these interesting opportunities on top of these little storage bits and within these little storage bits to kind of incorporate stuff as it comes along. Within the structure along the front of it, we would anticipate having just a super flexible rod for cinema lighting that can be used for stages as well as any kind of drama. And it's just basically meant to be flexible.
Steve?
Well, I'll just say it's exciting because I've been watching the whole process through the Parks Board for months now, or years now, I guess, and it's pretty exciting. There's a few things that I think are interesting that kind of got passed by and they didn't talk about, but if you'll look at, doesn't have a page number on it, but concept E.
Inside
On the
back
top.
page?
Yeah, and you see where you've got the music symbols?
Uh-huh.
But what they're talking about there is the laser cut steel
Okay.
pieces, so that they're really durable, but
Like-
they're,
like this?
yeah.
Darren, pass it down
Where
here.
we create different
So,
aesthetic features, but make them really simple and durable.
so this piece of steel that has been perforated, you know, fairly well by a laser, and you could do a lot with that as a decorative element.
But-
Yeah, I just wanted to add, that's in a pattern relief.
Yeah.
But I think, Steve, we also discussed our meeting, and we forgot to bring it tonight, but potential using compressed bamboo wood panels. And you could do the same thing, where if you look at the lower left, the first board, you could carve perforations into the wood as well.
Then, the other thing that I was impressed with the team is that they actually have spent time here in Monmouth, looking around Monmouth, to come up with this design. And one of the things that they noticed was how the fountain looks when it's lit at night.
Right,
And so that's part of what they're talking about, of
the
the
uplighting.
uplighting with the open bricks, so that you get that same sense in that corner that you do out with the fountain, so that you get the continuity of lighting. So it's really exciting. I can't wait for it to get built.
You donate, right? It's easy.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I love it. I love all the natural materials and really the thoughtfulness of why those materials were chosen. As a theater person, I'm just kind of looking at when the wings open up and making sure that it reflects how far they open up or something, so that they can be used for stage entrances. You know, clearly it's a lot different if you've got a dragon costume trying to get on stage around them than if you've just got little individuals walking around. So that looks cool. That's very cool. And then the other thing, I guess, you know, just looking at roofs nowadays after our snow recently, and making sure how the snow is going to land on those roofs and get it off of it and things. But I'm sure that's all well thought out. Yeah, I really like it, and I like the innovative materials, and I appreciate too the explanation of the back of the stage, how right at that corner of Jackson and Knox, because you want to make that an artistic element. I mean, that just a chunk of brick certainly could detract from everything else if we don't have that something decorative there. So.
You know, we had the good fortune of Bodie's building. You want to see what you can do with brick. Look at that. Jesse?
Once again, fantastic job, and thank you for coming and experiencing the community and really doing a lot of homework to come up with this. Can't believe it's been a year since that last meeting at the library, but been quite a year. But I'm curious to know first, just a simple detail. What's the distance between the bathroom and the stage? Because it seems closer than I'm hoping it and imagining it being.
Well, I guess the way to envision it, the bathroom would be where the existing pad is.
Right.
now.
So how far does that stage reach out to it? It seems really close.
Oh.
Yeah, I was having a look. And so really, that building, I mean, did They asked a question about utilizing, like a lot of bathrooms you see in parks have one side of, like have a kitchen or something for the beer garden and whatnot. I was curious if that got brought up and maybe having that space available for that reason. Instead of having it temporary every single time we come in, but that probably is a big addition, but I was curious if that ever got brought up.
That did not, no.
Okay.
No.
We have a bathroom like that at the recreational park where there's 2 bathrooms and on the backside is the concession stand for the
Sure.
park.
Can be utilized in a whole lot of different areas. Just thought, and then I haven't heard anything about, because I know I did hear it at the forum at the library a year ago, was the green tech being involved, and I know that kind of was kind of through a kink in it just because of cost sometimes it sends the cost up, but is there any type of green technology involved, catching the water, anything like that?
Yeah,
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 thanks,
there is,
thanks
yeah.
for bringing it up. And we forgot to mention that yes, there's several green technologies being used, and almost all of them are passive, not doing anything sophisticated, because it does tend to, it can drive costs up.
Mhm.
A lot of our projects have that as a possibility, whether it's solar or other kinds of forms of energy. But all of our projects mean to minimize energy use, and this one can be very, very low energy, utilizing LED light fixtures, for instance, that are just about starting to make it completely. We've been almost there for about 5 years, and it's a struggle. There's a first cost, but so our lighting would be LED in most cases, but the one feature of the project that we're quite excited about is just the stormwater catchment and basically retaining that in these small rain garden areas. You see that the main roof comes down into one location, and we would have basically zinc downspouts matching the roofing assembly. They come down into very small rain garden areas where they kind of hold the water for a short amount of time before then letting it percolate into the soil.
So that would be on the backside facing the street at the base of the brick areas, that's the rain gardens?
Exactly, right next
Okay.
to the sign, for instance. A lot of these things are kind of educational opportunities. So that's there. It actually happens at the opposite, the 2 opposite ends of the restroom facility. So the same, the same strategy has been used in both those locations. So we're really, I mean, this is Oregon. We have to address stormwater and how we can do it passively, yet quietly, yet educationally is part of what we're all trying to do.
That is fantastic news. I'm really happy to hear that. And
And I should mention too, the landscaping is some of the details that would go into the next round of working on the design. So you notice you don't see a lot of plant material here. This
that was
is,
going to be my next question.
yeah, that's what's coming next.
Okay.
We've got a subcontractor who's Walker Macy with the landscape plans.
That's right. Our landscape consultant is doing that, and one thing that we're really excited to build upon, it's not our idea, either your idea or Russ's idea, but the reuse of the fountain water it's a great idea. So much of this reuse of water turns out to be it's interesting to mention, but whether it actually works or not is a challenge, because here we get so much rainwater at the times that we don't need to reuse it. And yet here we're going to get this water in the heat of the summertime, and that's when we want to use it. And so we can use it for the fountain during the day, and then reuse it for the irrigation at night. And so it really makes sense. It's just a great, it's a solid idea.
Is there any thought of using some of that recaptured fountain water for toilet flush?
We could. We haven't gone there yet.
Okay.
When you do that, there's a certain amount of filtering that occurs with the rainwater, with the splash water. There are actually a lot of regulations that make it harder than maybe we'd like it to be, but it's all for our public safety, so it makes sense. To do it, we would have a different piping system, but all these are possible, and we should look at that. We should look at that.
So my last question was just, I read in here we had the ability to put a projector screen, or a screen on the front of this. Is that is a possibility, and that is something that is gonna be worked in?
That is a possibility. We will make it to accommodate that. It's probably actually best to not have it mounted
All the time.
permanently all the time. But at the same time, it's not much of a trick to just
Put one
put some hooks
Oh,
up and be able to do it.
And
Terrific.
I immediately think of where projectors have gone with digital projection, that you could actually mount a projector in the roof and a screen at the back and not have to worry about any presence out in the park at all.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly
Away
right.
you go.
We could figure out.
It's where we're considering it, it would work either with front projection or rear projection.
Perfect.
And we love the idea of hiding things and making that, because I think that just goes a long ways for a lot of reasons.
Counselor Silvernagle.
Great concept, great job, all the committee, did a great job on the work, the Parks Committee as well. Love it, you know, hopefully we get the funding all figured out eventually, and love to see it take place.
I have a feeling that if anyone were to contact Community Development Director Fancy and offer donations for this amphitheater in the future, that he would be more than happy to take your call.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to say that donations would be another form. We've got $5,000 that the Monmouth Business Association has donated, and there are some other names of people that we could talk to about donations as well.
Any thoughts of, I mean, we've just had the announcement about the new education building at the university, and a former professor donating $1.4 million to hang his name on the building. In part, and I'm wondering if there's been any discussion at Parks about naming rights for the stage or the whole amphitheater or the structure, or, you know, whatever.
So that may come up. It'll probably be more fitting once we have a ballpark number that we're
Okay.
going towards. Yeah.
You know, I know with that education building, the legislature put up a nice amount of cash. I want to say it was $17 million or something, but before that could get spent, the university needed to find donations totaling the single donation that they got. So they got it in one go, which is just amazing to me. But so yeah, just I wanted to throw that one out there. I think we have you know, a community that is supportive of the arts, and we might find that a community member would be interested in stepping up, given that opportunity. So I would urge Parks to consider that. Anybody else? Thank you for your presentation. This was
Yeah.
really nice, and it's been, from the outside looking in, it's really been fun to watch as the concepts bubbled up and got refined and poured together and stirred, and the next concept came out, and you know, it's been a really great iterative process to come around to something that, you know, when we get this thing built, it's going to be an incredible community-wide resource. And I see it serving not just residents of Monmouth, but Polk County, and we might even invite folks from the other side of the river and, you know, down south to come out for shows if they behave themselves.
And it goes to show that with a good, diligent, you know, work, take your time, get everyone's input, and not everything has to be done
No,
super fast, and
Nope.
taking time, so it does work.
it really does. It's this is, you know, it reminds me of the fountain process. Same idea, where we vetted ideas on that and refined, and as a result, we got, you know, I've been amazed by that fountain this winter. No water, lights on at night, and with that stainless steel sculpture on top, it looks like it's on. It's just been spectacular, and you know, I'm looking forward to the same impact here. So thank you so much for your work, Mark. Thank you so much for your work. Parks, thank you so much for your work.
Yeah. Lots and lots of it.
Right.
Excited.
Okay.
Thank you to the community.
How was that presentation back there?
So I move that the council accept the recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Board and direct staff to proceed with the development of Main Street Park Amphitheater Concept E for excellence.
May I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go forth and do good amphitheater. Yay. Okay, is there are there any council comments tonight? And hearing none, I would request a motion to adjourn the meeting to work session.
So moved.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let us meet in the back in 5 minutes or so.